I am Adegoke Oludotun Oluleke Newton, a student of Real Life Christian College and Seminary. And our discourse this day shall be centered on philosophy. Quickly, let's try to define what philosophy is all about. There have been a number of attempts over time to define philosophy. A very ancient and influential notion of philosophy is that it is the quest for knowledge. Indeed, the word philosophy comes from the Greek word philosopher, which means the love of wisdom. Some have believed that what philosophy is ultimately the search for knowledge. The search for knowledge, for the foundations of all human understanding. More recently, people have defined philosophy as linguistic and conceptual analysis, that is, attempting to understand what we mean by the words that we use and what the basic logic is of the discourse that we have per time. So philosophy is the systematic study of fundamental questions related to existence, knowledge, value, reason, mind, and language. It involves critical thinking, rational argumentation, and the exploration of fundamental concepts to understand the nature of reality, the human condition, and the underlying principle of various aspects of life. Major branches of philosophy are epistemology, ethics, logic, and metaphysics. What is epistemology? Epistemology study what knowledge is and how to acquire it. Ethics investigate moral principles and what constitutes right conduct. Logic is the study of correct reasoning and explores how good arguments can be distinguished from bad ones. Metaphysics examines the most general features of reality, existence, object, and properties. Other notable subfields are aesthetics, philosophy of language, philosophy of mind, philosophy of religion, philosophy of science, and political philosophy. Philosophers use a great variety of methods to arrive at philosophical knowledge. This includes conceptual analysis, reliance on common sense and intuition, use of thought experiment, analysis of ordinary languages, description of experiences, and critical questioning. Philosophy is related to many other fields like the sciences, mathematics, business, law, and journalism. It provides an interdisciplinary perspective and studies their scope and fundamental concepts. The philosophical attitude includes a sense of wonder, doubting, criticism, reflection, tolerance, preference to experience and reason. The kind of question that philosophers have asked over the millennia will give us a better definition of what philosophy is actually all about. This will help us get some sense of what philosophy really is. It is just beyond formal definition. One thing that philosophers may ask is, what is good or fulfilling as it pertains to human life? Another question could be, what is the meaning of justice? Another question could be, can the existence of God be proven, or is it solely a matter of faith? What is a person? What determines an individual's identity? What does it mean to know something as opposed to merely believe in it? Do moral judgment admit of proof or are merely pure subjective? Is there a standard of taste? What makes something a work of art? What gives mark on the page or sounds linguistic meaning? What does it mean to say that a sentence is true or false? Just to mention a few. From these questions, we can see that philosophy covers a broad range of subjects And so we cannot define philosophy in terms of specific subject matter. Philosophy covers everything from ethics to politics to linguistics to science to religion. We might be able to define philosophy as a certain kind of way of asking questions, and I think that might get us closer to the truth. But in fact, philosophy does not admit of a simple and straightforward definition. All that one can say about it is that philosophy involves the investigation of humanity and most fundamental question at their most abstract level. Let's have a case study. For instance, if we talk about the sheep of Tarsus paradox. The sheep of Tarsus paradox is a classical philosophical problem that explores the concept of identity and change. It raises the question about the persistence of identity when the components of an object are replaced over time. Now, let's look at this scenario. Imagine a ship known as the ship of Tarsus, which has been sailing for centuries. As it ages, the wooden parts, such as the planks, the beam, begins to decay and are periodically replaced with new ones to maintain its seaworthiness over the years. Every single part of the ship has been replaced at least once. Now, look at the paradox. Is it still the ship of Tarsus? If not, at what point did it cease to be the ship of Tarsus? If you were to gather all the original parts that were replaced and assemble them into a ship, would that still be the true ship of Tarsus? Now, philosophical implication is this. The paradox dives into several philosophical concepts. Now, let's look at the issue of identity. What defines the identity of an object? Is it physical component or some deeper essence? Then let's look at the change and the persistence. Can something which has undergone continuous change, and can we still say still maintaining its identity, or does it fundamentally become something else over the period of time? Now let's now look at essential versus accidental properties. This raises the question about what makes something what it is. Whether is it essentially its characteristics or the accidental ones. When we look at the different perspective of the philosopher and the different solution that we offer, philosophers have offered various solutions. Now, we have the philosophers who are essentialism. Those who have this school of thought, they will argue that the ship of Tarsus is defined by its essential characteristics, such as its name, its purpose, and its historical significance. And as long as this remains, the ship retains its identity. Now, the bundle theory, that is another school of thought, will say, others propose that identity is a collection of characteristics or properties. If these properties change, the identity changes also. Another school of thought is no true Scotsman's fallacy. These critics argue that the question of identity might not have a definite answer and may depend on how one defines identity. The ship of Tarsus paradox illustrates how philosophy can challenge our assumptions about the nature of identity and the persistence of object over time. It encourages critical thinking and highlights the complexity of seemingly simple questions, making it a great example of philosophical inquiry.